So the way I want to do this today is to really put myself in a situation where I am teaching this to undergraduates. And so you're going to play the role. You're going to play the role of incoming freshmen. So I want you to speak the way. I want you to speak.
Nice touch.
Pretend you're incoming freshmen when we go into this situation.
We don't have to talk.
Who's
this Onan guy?
So we are going to.
Onan the Barbarian.
Yeah, sure. Just go ahead, scroll through your phone.
I love Schwarzenegger, so I'm going to try to know.
So I'm going to start by acknowledging the fact that this is a challenging text. And I know it's a challenging text, and it probably wasn't your easiest reflection to write, even though you will probably be starting this text from section 3, right? So I am going to propose 2 complementary texts, which I'm going to present via video. And then we're going to break into small groups, and I want you to talk about one thing. We'll come back, talk about that, and then I'm going to throw you back into the text. Okay? So here's our first complementary text.
The 2012 Masters, Bubba Watson's errant drive landed in the woods right in the fairway. Bubba's ball was 163 yards to the flag in a straight line. But in between the ball and the flag was a Carolina cherry tree, a magnolia tree, a TV tower, and hundreds of patrons.
He was in jail.
And I hit 52 degrees with my gap wedge, hooked it about 40 yards.
Seriously? A 40-yard hook with a wedge? To find out the true geometry of the shot, we dissected the hole, confirming our data with a rangefinder, GPS technology, and a good old-fashioned tape measure. Bubba's closest line of escape was on the edge of a magnolia 62 feet away. A straight shot 163 yards along that line puts him in a bush left of the green. Well, from this spot, which is where a dead straight ball would have landed, the flag is still 35 yards away. A safer target line, just 2 feet clear of the magnolia, would have left a straight ball almost 41 yards from the hole. But Bubba took an even more conservative route, launching the shot at least 4 feet left of the magnolia. This means that according to our analysis, Bubba was flat out wrong. He didn't hit a 40-yard hook. It was closer to a 45-yard hook. So what kind of physics are at play to make a 52-degree wedge curve that much? With a dramatically inside-out club path and a closed club face, Bubba tilted the axis the ball spins on by up to 38 degrees. Although golf balls are launched with backspin, tilting that axis creates a relative motion that essentially works as side spin. Bubba generated an estimated 7,200 RPM of spin. That's nearly 3 times faster than the average Major League curveball spins. And that spin got him out of jail and into a new 44 ball. Of course, with the Masters on the line, an instinctual golfer like Bubba Watson doesn't take into account the math and physics, because that kind of shot making, known as Bubba golf, is more art than science.
All right, second one. Okay, I think you get the picture here. Okay. So, here's the question. Can you tell me what mastery is? Right, so I want you to get in groups of 4 or 5 and see if in the next couple of minutes we can come up with what is mastery, or another possible question, more or less the same question, is what does it mean to master something? Whether it's Clark Terry, according to many, maybe the greatest trumpet player in history. A guy who played, he was playing in this theater, playing his clubs, and a little kid came up to him and said, "I've watched you play, and I just want you to teach me." And he had never taught anybody, and he decided he was going to teach this kid, even though he was playing mostly at night, so he'd have to play, kind of teach him, steal hours of sleep to teach him. And when that guy eventually became a band leader, he hired him away. Quincy Jones hired him away from playing for Duke Ellington and had him be the lead trumpet in his own band. This is now for the educators, there's a great documentary called Keep On Keepin' On, which is about Clark Terry as an old guy, practically bedridden, who is mentoring a blind jazz pianist. And it's about the relationship that they have. And he just lies there and goes, "No, you gotta do that again." It's, the guy tries to play it because the other guy's obviously not reading music, he's blind. Clark Terry's practically blind at this point, and it's really a great kind of education thing. All right, so 5 minutes. What is mastery?
I wrote down
That ball is going 140 to 160. And if I crush it, it'll go.
All right, I just feel Bill Raymond telling golf stories, so I think. All right, anybody come up with a descriptive sentence or, apparently, this group is confident in their own abilities here in the back. They're masters.
We said experience to the point of near perfection.
Experience to the point of near perfection. Okay? Near perfection, right? I mean, because after all, Bubba didn't hold that shot.
We said it's SKA. You have the skills, you have the knowledge, and you have the attributes of being a master.
What's an attribute?
Attribute is your motivation, your commitment, your self-sacrifice. I mean, it's the innate qualities that you have, the traits that you have. Inquisitiveness, working, going to the driving range and practicing.
Anybody over here? Something to add? Something to subtract? Thank you. Something.
Yeah. We talked about the
Right side of the room is coming up strong.
we talked about knowing something well enough to be able to teach it, but I think if we step back and generalize a little bit, it's having authority over a subject.
Okay, authority over a subject. He also said ability to teach.
I was thinking
How about over here?
Well, habits, for example, habits of
That's qualities you
mind,
have.
habits of craftsman, working physical things, and so that would be both habits of mind and body, I guess,
I don't think
Okay.
I'm pretending to be your friend.
Which is a tie-in between skills and knowledge, right?
We tried. We were such good freshmen.
How about this group, the self-selecting, sit in the back of the left of the room group? Go ahead.
Well, we've had several thoughts. Some of them have already been taken by computers.
It's not a question of the
We're
credit.
acting like freshmen, right? Well, we said what they,
All our
of
good
what they
ideas were
said
already
was
said.
sort of what we said.
Okay.
Well, another one that's in is troubleshooting. For example, when things don't go right, and so you understand the work of your craft well enough to be able to...
Like to correct on the fly,
to correct
type thing? Okay.
We also discussed the 10,000-hour commitment.
Okay.
Yeah, dedication.
Freshman, how do you know your 10,000 hours? You haven't been alive 10,000 hours.
Okay.
Because I really want to throw the best curveball ever. My high school coach told me for the best curveball ever, you got about 8,000 more hours to put in.
By then you won't have an arm, so don't worry about it. Okay. Let's,
So to add to troubleshooting, it's the ability to preempt problems before they happen. Because you're
okay.
so familiar with.
So it'll be both of those things, right? Because obviously, if we go to the Bubba Watson example, I mean, the guy hit an excellent shot, right? Because of a non-excellent shot, right? Because another famous golfer, Phil Mickelson, is famous for getting himself out of jams. He's also famous for getting himself into jams, right? Is a problem. So, plus preempting problems, okay?
Actually, in some ways, that reminds me of the discussion of expertise in generalship in Sun Tzu. The task of, say, knowing oneself, knowing one's opponent, and if so, then you get to the point of being able to win all the battles all the time. But if it turns out that one is neither aware of oneself nor of the challenges that one is facing, you start getting less than 50-50.
And the opponent here might be just the inherent difficulty in playing the trumpet, right? Or just the inherent difficulty in the game of golf or in any worthwhile endeavor. So I want to bring us back to the value that we're talking about, okay? So it says excellence through virtue. We believe that the daily discipline, okay, and practice of virtue leads to learning, freedom, and greatness. To personally strive for excellence in all things, practicing cardinal and theological virtues until they become habit. So there's this idea of habitual excellence, not just an awesome shot. I mean, okay, that would be on YouTube no matter who shot, right? But the fact that it happened in such a clutch moment, playoff hole, in a really major tournament, and the fact that he said at the end, this type of thing called Bubba Golf, because he does this. I could have shown another clip where on a 630-yard par 5, really, really long hole in Hawaii, he hits driver, putter. So he basically has a this time he hooked the ball this way, right, which is kind of the opposite way. If you're lefty, it's righty, right? So here, this way, he slices it about 80 yards, right? But the part is, he meant to do it, right? Yeah. Intentionally. I need to put about this. Most people are trying to fight not to slice or not to hook. He's saying, all right, this is going to go out this far, and then it's going to hook around this much. And I like at the end of it, he says, they're not talking about science. He didn't get out a protractor or a rangefinder and do this. He said, for somebody that does it like him, it's an art, right? Because he's got such a feel for it, right?
The first thing we had was art. There has to be an art involved.
Right? So the idea with Clark Terry. Clark Terry isn't reading music, right? He knows what the progressions are, and he knows that these notes work well within this type of thing, and he can have a dialogue between his right hand and his left hand. And one of the reasons why they show the close-up of the fingers is because sometimes he's only pressing the valve down halfway, and he gets a different sound out of the trumpet from doing it, because he can make that thing do anything that it's able to do, right? And people like that make you think, like I've seen Dr. Greco here get some sounds out of a saxophone in a concert that I didn't know the saxophone could do. It sounded like a whistle, right? And like, I didn't know the instrument was capable of doing that. And under the hands of a master, it can, okay? So the value has to do with habitual excellence, which is one of the ways that we define a virtue, right? Because a person who can do that, we call them a virtuoso, right? We call them a virtuoso, but it also says freedom, right? And there is a way of seeing freedom that says by becoming excellent at something, I free myself from stinking at it. Right? So all of the hours that Bubba Watson put into it meant that he was free to make a shot like that when it was on the line. Right? He was free to do so. Another classical phrase is ars est celare artem, right? The skill is to veil the skill, to hide the skill. In other words, to make it look easy. Right? And just think of, a master in whatever field of endeavor you want to think of, any sport, Michael Jordan in his heyday. He did something that very few people could do, and he made you think like you could do it. Like, I'm going to go out in the yard now and try to do this, and you could, right? Because he made it look easy. Okay? So, we are going to look at this value, okay, in a habit of mind that talks about a particular skill, which is thinking and communicating with clarity. Right? Now, there may be some people here that play an instrument, maybe some people who play an instrument well. There may be people who are very skilled in a particular physical activity, right? Maybe not masters to that degree. Right? You'd probably get picked up by another college instead of this one. But there's one thing that we've probably all done close to 10,000 hours, and that's trying to communicate. And so the question is, why don't we have a mastery of that? Right? So when we talk about liberal arts, arts that give you the freedom, that's the liberal part, right? That give you the freedom to do something. The first big set of them is the trivium, which is what we call the language arts, right? So I want you to kind of go back to the text now in the groups with fresh eyes and pay attention just to the questions that he said, right? Just the questions that he asked. Because I always challenge, he's trying to apply this analysis of grammar, analysis of logic, analysis of rhetoric to a Shakespearean sonnet, and not one of the ones that you might have seen in high school. And it's challenging. But there's something that you're going to have to do a fair amount of in the next 4 years, which is communicate your thoughts precisely, right? And in order to do so, you're going to have to ask the right questions. And you're going to have to express yourself with clarity. So, the objective was clear. For Bubba Watson, he knew where he had to go. He knew where the flagstick was. He knew how he had to get there, even though it was kind of a torturous path. So I want you to go over those questions and be honest with each other. So you guys are the freshmen, right? And say, when I think about expressing myself, am I thinking about these three things, right? So grammar. The norm of grammar is correctness. So the correct way to say something. Right? The norm of logic is truth. Is what I'm saying, truth. And I argue for its truth. And for rhetoric, it's effectiveness. Am I getting my point across effectively in the sense of maybe persuasively? And these sometimes are at cross purposes, not saying that you can lie. I'm saying that sometimes a grammatically incorrect statement
Is more persuasive.
might be very effective. Ain't that the truth? Because the Bubba Watson shot was very effective even though that's not what you learn when you're trying to play golf the right way, right? So this is a little bit more free-flowing discussion. We don't have a defined mastery, but go over those questions, and I want to know which ones for a particular group jump out at you as the ones that you would most want to learn about. There's a set of questions in each section.
For grammar.
Okay.
First one's around page 5. That's my second.
I mean, which question has the?
When you write your paper, so if you don't have.
Right, there's 7 questions in each. So go over those questions.
Dr. Mulholland, I don't understand.
That's perfectly fine. Okay. Perhaps I didn't express myself with clarity. All right, I want you to go over those 3 sets of 7 questions and ask this question on top of them. Which one of those do you want to learn more about? Which ones jump out at you of, hey, I think this would be interesting? Okay? Or another way to say it is, which one of those, if you knew the answers to those questions, which one of those would bring you quickest to mastery of your communication?
Freshman.
All right, by this point, the discussion will be dying down, I predict. All right, or we'll be going elsewhere. We'll be going back to the Bubba Watson. So let's take the first 7 questions, the ones that have to do with grammar, on page 5. Which questions kind of jumped out at you?
Meaning. Meaning is the first one we addressed, yeah.
Okay. What is the meaning of any word? Okay.
Or not just the word. Is meaning exclusively focused upon the word? I think the questions may have been somewhat over-specialized. It could be that the whole utterance has meaning, and we might want to go looking at what's needed to be able to bring that meaning across.
But my point is, was that question important with respect to any of the other questions you struggled with?
We started off with the meaning, then we said, if you're going to figure out how it functions with the group, you have to know its meaning before you know its relationship with others. So it's like.
But my question is, did anybody have a problem with the meaning of a word in a later question?
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Right?
Because I've been really critical of this whole reading, speaking as not as a freshman now, but I've been critical of this whole reading because it's going to need. I don't think that most of the freshmen that I know would be able to wrestle with much of this beyond the very first poem.
Okay, so here's my point. I'm going to ask: did anybody, while they were reading this, look up a word they didn't understand?
We do that all the time. You want us to ask that question of our.
No. I'm asking my freshman class, right? And so this is not a shaming mechanism, but I'm saying that, okay, one of the things that might hold us back from mastery, right, is
vocabulary,
not cultivating the habit of looking up words that we don't understand and being content with not knowing. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, so each of these questions, right, are part of the habit of mind, right? Each of these questions are things that, if you know how to do this, you are going to get better at expressing yourself. Right? Some of these things, obviously, would not maybe have been part of your education thus far, especially the more specialized logic stuff. But luckily, we have a class here on that if you'd like to take it, right? And most of the classes that you're going to take that have to do with writing are going to talk about how to put an argument together in some form. You're going to learn how to put an argument together in a particular discipline, because arguing in theology is not going to be the same as arguing in biology, right? But you're going to need to know what makes an argument work, whether or not you use this specific terminology or not. That's all.
I think just on this issue of it's too hard,
Well, I want to get to that in a second because I do want to dedicate the last 10 minutes to actually critique of the text, not with the freshman hats on backwards.
Okay. The second issue, central proposition, seems to be ambiguous. It could mean, what's the point of the argument? In which case, we're aiming at the conclusion. It could mean, what's the justification for the argument? In which case, we're looking for the principles or causes explaining the conclusion. So that's an ambiguity, it seems to me, that might be worth exploring.
Okay.
So I'm glad you said that, because that's what I picked as the one I have the most trouble with, but for reasons like the ones you're discussing. You know, is it a logical proposition? Is it rhetorical? What's going on
in this discourse?
In a particular discourse, right? And I think very often authors are trying to convince you of something, or mixing in rhetoric with logic, right? And so then what you have to do is you have to kind of find the skeleton of the thing, right? And see, you know, what's bone and what's cartilage and what's what, you know. But anyway, I'm glad you said it.
So the habit of looking up a particular word, there's also another habit of asking yourselves, what is this author trying to tell me? I have to read this particular article on a particular subject, right? Do I at least mentally outline it? This is what this person is trying to say. These are the key terms that this person is using. This is how the argument adds up, right? And can I summarize that in a paragraph? Because I would say if you cannot do that, receiving something and kind of crunching it down, it's going to be very, very difficult to construct one yourself when you have to write a paper, right? So there's that. I mean, the moral of the story here is going to be pay very close attention in English content. Okay? And appreciate the freedom that gives, right? Because obviously, this is not something that was written to freshmen. It was written to educators, and he's kind of arguing that it seems to be that in the last certain number of years, we're not doing a good enough job in making people comfortable with their own language. Otherwise this wouldn't be true. Right? Jerry Seinfeld, 60 seconds here.
According to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. Now this means to the average person, if you have to go to a funeral, you're better off in a casket than doing the eulogy.
Right?
Can be arranged.
So there's at least something lacking in us that we don't have the confidence in our own ability to get our point across. Even the difficulty that it is finding people who want to read out loud, right? And that's something that in my teaching experience doesn't exist in every country. You can pull anybody in Italy, and they will read their language beautifully. And part of it is such a beautiful language, but secondly, they really, really, really concentrate on those habits, right? So I think that one of the things that this text shows, this is a more of a protest piece than anything else, is that mastery is out there, and it's our own responsibility to kind of go out and maybe make up for whatever was lacking, because it is not impossible. Okay, so you want something on this, or we're going to talk about
I just want to
the text?
paraphrase My Fair Lady, if you don't mind.
Please.
Why can't Americans teach their children how to speak?
Well, that kind of leads us into now the Professor Gripe session.
Oh, before Professor Higgins, could I just point out, follow up on your point?
Okay.
Under the rhetoric thing, in one question, we might have the same thing as a logic question, what is the argument? And on the other hand, how should it be delivered in recitation or performance? Part of that question is a reflection. That reflection, though, can only happen after someone has done it. So you might want to go putting people students actually with a pistol to their head, saying, you recite this paragraph, you recite that one, And then do they do it right, and how could it be improved?
Right, I mean, there are classes that do that here, right? Classes on oral expression. So if you feel that you have a particular lack in this area, there are ways, there are classes out there
To help.
that can and should help you, and help you gain in that confidence and gain in that skill. All right,
Well,
I want you to speak first, because
well, no, this is completely different.
Okay.
I feel like the students are going to say, well, it's not my job to learn this stuff, it's your job to teach me.
Really,
So,
not compulsory.
Well,
This is
I'm
not
just
a
saying.
compulsory, right? I was just saying, you
There's-
didn't come here by law. The place
my parents
where you
read-
came, no, I love this discussion. The place where you came and the courses you choose is totally up to you. You're done after high school, right? You don't have to do this. This is all on you. I am merely, you're the one who wants to serve me food. No, you didn't have to come into this restaurant. I'm waiting for you to order. Right? Once you order, then it's up to you. And I'll serve it to you, and it's going to be delicious. And whether you eat it or not, that's also on you. Okay? So, I mean,
Yeah, if there are no ground rules, then everyone will be trampled to death.
right? So let's talk about the text in itself, whether you think it works for the habit.
So, I think that Jan suggested it was too hard, at least if I was listening correctly.
I honestly thought it was here just to give us a chance to talk about masturbation with our students. I didn't.
There'll be plenty of opportunity for that.
But I guess it seems to me that we are intentionally giving them, right, we're forcing them to be an audience for a piece of writing that we begin by acknowledging is not written for them as an audience. It's written for us as an audience.
What
And-
text have we done thus far, which was written for them as an audience?
This is the one that I think is farthest afield. This one might as well be in Russian, or Greek, or Latin, because in many ways it is. There are a lot of specialized terms that come from those languages, which may give some students an inspiration to take Greek or Latin. For other students, it may be, okay, I'm at the wrong college. How do I get out of here fastest?
Would it be, and this is for Dr. Shia, would it be richer in Greek or Latin terms than an article that they might be reading in Introduction to Theology at the exact same time?
What's the question?
Well, the fact that there's Greek or Roman terminology, enthymeme or syllogism or words to that effect. Rhetoric.
So you're asking, would it be...
Because the argument is that since it has difficult terms, then that would make them think that they've made the wrong choice of choosing this university.
And Eddie's responding to my challenge by saying some of them will be taking Theo 101,
Or Philosophy 1750.
Especially if you're...
But not all of them will.
Yeah, I know.
They will all take Theo 101.
Eventually, but not necessarily the first
Not necessarily the first semester, right?
I suggest just reading the first paragraph.
Yeah, this is the mission statement, and these are all, the green is Hebrew roots, and the orange is Greek roots, and the yellow are Latin roots.
Read it 3 times, first eliminating the Hebrew, then eliminating the Greek, then eliminating the Latin.
Well, I mean, the argument against that is the fact that they're all, in fact, English words, right? Which I would argue is also true of this. No, I mean, I'm obviously arguing for the text, and I was arguing for the text in the way I taught it, because we did not dwell a tremendous amount on the text, right? But I think that it's not a bad idea to give them a text that's a challenge, saying, you know what? If you read this text 4 years from now,
you'll understand it.
You might, well, let's hope.
You might understand it better.
My worry is that instead of encouraging them to stick with something so that it becomes a habit, this is such a challenge at such an early stage in the educational experience at Benedictine College, which is a marvelous liberal arts buffet for them. I worry that for at least some students, it will say, to be able to understand, no, I can get through the first 2 pages, I'm going to go to class, I'm going to get embarrassed, and then when they come to class and they're not embarrassed because we guide them at that point through the text, then they say, oh, then I don't have to read the whole text when I come next time. Is anybody else worried about
Well,
that?
I had that concern. After this discussion, I feel a little more like, okay, I can see the value. We discussed that we felt that there were certain parts of the text that were more relevant for our students than others, and that there was some confusion. Maybe, do you give them all of the text? Do you give them part of the text? You can give them some scaffolding before or along with it, to help them approach it.
So, yeah.
So, those are some options.
Yeah, my suggestion would be to start it straight up on section 3, right? Just on the liberal art of grammar, just before it has those questions, right? And to tell them before, this is a challenging text, to tell them that they're probably not going to understand all of it, and that I really want them above all to focus on those questions. And maybe within those questions, maybe look up a word or two that
You said start in section 3 and go to where? The end?
and go to
the end of the question?
I would say just focus on section 3.
Focus on section 3. And by the way,
yeah, in the A, B, and C of section 3.
Right,
Yeah.
It was just, Eddie did one other thing, which was, I think, to the point. If we tell them, focus on section 3, and then rehearse with them when they get into class, what is the most important question or questions under each of the 3 headings, and why? I could at least get a conversation started. You did, actually.
The lesson, lesson on clarity. Based on my experience in the Army, we had the acronym Keep It Simple, Stupid. So if I'm still trying to figure out, so when I have to read something 2 or 3 times to figure out what they're saying,
I don't like it.
I might, either I'm dumb or maybe I'm not understanding something, but it's not often. But if it's not that clear to me, so something that's pretty clear to some people, maybe if you're in the Great Brooks program or, but for me...
Don't.
No, I'm just saying...
No, I'm just saying that there's this false conception that there are going to be students who can just breeze through this.
I have students that can breeze through this.
I would love to meet a freshman who can breeze through this.
Well, why you didn't say for now freshman?
Right. No, I'm just saying, this is what we're talking about. Right? So this is another thing I like to talk about. Start out talking about a baseball game and say, well, tell me what happened. So-and-so went up and hit a can of corn and there was a double play and whatever. And saying, it's amazing the amount of technical vocabulary that you communicate, right? Whereas I don't know a lot about cricket, and if I watched a cricket game, I could tell you what happened, but it would purely be descriptive. Right? So what we're trying to do is bridge the gap between a purely descriptive account of something and an account that has some more technical language, because the technical language is going to introduce you into seeing things that you didn't do before. For example, if you take an art appreciation class or a music appreciation class, you're going to learn, right, the kind of things that to listen for, and those things will have names, okay? That's the same thing in the liberal arts, because it may be that later on you forget what the names are. But if you still know how to build the argument, and you still know why it works the right way, because if you don't build it the right way and know why it works the right way, then you're not the master, because that's just lucky.
So what would military science look like if we had to strike any synonym for logistics?
Right? And I'm teeing up, another Bubba Watson joke, I'm teeing up the next habit of mind, which is going to be accuracy and precision. Right? Which is basically something very, very similar to this, focused more on, maybe on the quadrivium. Right? Because we don't want you to estimate and guesstimate. right? If Mark Twain said the difference between the right word and almost the right word is the difference between lightning and the lightning bug. So I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
So what is that
Ongoing
reading?
debate.
I mean, that's one of the additional readings. I mean, is that an alternative that they read Mark Twain?
That's the whole reading.
Just that quote. Oh. So there's-
Right? But it makes you think, right? So I just don't think we are intentional enough. And I want to sound the alarm for the students that when they're writing, they have to be very aware of what words they're using, what the context is, you know, what am I really trying to get across? Because the more awareness we have of that, and that's the habit of mind, right? The more awareness that we have of that, the clearer our writing will be, and the clearer our communication will be. And
By the way, when I taught the 2-hour course back in the 90s, one of the things that I had them do was start and keep a vocabulary notebook. And so I made them turn in at least 5 to 7 words every time that they had looked up. If they had to look up because they didn't know it, and so on. And what I kept urging them to do was just get a notebook, write an A, 2 or 3 pages later, a B, and so on, and then get your notebook going for your whole college career. And so every time you run across a word that you don't know, put it in the notebook, right? And so you'll have to look up those words 5, 10, 15 times before you really know them, but it's really helpful. And the reason is that it helps you make the right distinctions, right? You want to make a distinction between this phenomenon and this one that's nearby. You need the right words, right? And so you need that right word at the right time. So it seemed to go over okay. They were looking them up, they were turning them in and so on. And I didn't get a lot of blowback or anything in that particular part of it.
In the logic course, one thing I discovered is that 2 words, for example, you cannot pass the course without understanding rules for distribution. But what is distribution? If one doesn't understand what that means,
right,
you can't do the third part of the course because 40% of the rules depend on it, and you can't do this part 2 of the course.
well, that would be a central proposition.
Yeah.
Going back to that question. I know we're running short on time.
Oh no, we're out.
We have run short.
Well, and the thing I thought, this is week 9, so it's going to be around fall break. You know, and for those that find it too difficult, they're going to say, I'm not coming back. You know, I mean, but, you know, I mean, and they will have experienced some of this in classes.
Yeah. Northern will be halfway through.
Right, so they, yeah.
Getting freshmen.
Right.
And it's not bad for them to hear you to look up unknown words from more than one teacher.
Very true. All right, so we'll see you not next week, right? Because it's Holy Week.
Thursday.